Hello and welcome to the next stage of the World Championship in Through the Ages. We are now in stage 4 of the tournament with 320 players left, so still quite a few of players in the tournament, but if we consider that we started with over 1,000 players at the beginning, there are also definitely already quite a lot of players eliminated. In the stage, there are 16 upper bracket groups and 64 lower bracket groups consisting of 4 players each. I'm playing in one of the upper bracket groups, meaning that all of my opponents in that group managed to win all of their groups before in the tournament. And like in the stages before, it will be in the upper bracket group that the winner of the group will move to the upper bracket of the next stage, the second and third place in the group will move to the lower bracket of the next stage, and the fourth position in the group will be eliminated. And before we are going to take a look at the first game, we as always will take a short look at the opponents that are awaiting me in the stage. And the first opponent that we can see is SQWNDW, and he might be the top contender or the best of my opponents in this group. All of the opponents in my group didn't have to play in stage 1 in the qualification stage. All of them were automatically qualified for stage 2. And in stage 2, SQ managed to score 39 points and managed to clean sweep his group. And then in the stage before, in stage 3, he finished with 26 points. So definitely very solid performances so far, and I don't know if you have followed the last international and intermezzo championship seasons, but not that long ago, in 2 seasons before in the intermezzo championship, he managed to win the intermezzo championship with 23 points, so with quite a strong performance, and with that has shown that he can perform and compete at the very highest level, show some very strong results, and with that is definitely a very strong contender here in this group. The next opponent is Healing Aura. Healing Aura I don't know a lot about. He played in stage 2 with 31 points, so quite a solid result. In the stage before, in stage 3, he finished with 24 points, so not the most points, but he managed to win his group, and that's the most important. Apart from that, I don't have a lot of knowledge about him. Then the next opponent and the last opponent in this group is Flackk. Flackk, same as SQ, managed to clean sweep his group in the second stage of the tournament with 39 points, and then in the stage before finished with 29 points. So out of my 3 opponents, he is the one who managed to score the most points in the stage before, and with that came out of the second seeding basket that were used to draw out the groups of the stage. Yeah, and also I don't know that much about him apart from that. I think against both Flackk and Healing Aura I didn't have played before, if I hopefully don't remember anything. And no. And before we are going to take a look at the first game, we will now take a short look at the Glicker rating. And as you can see, I'm at the moment still on top of the rating, but the last update is already a while ago, and the next update will come soon when the Intermezzo Championship has finished, which is currently ongoing and in the relatively progressed already. And I'm in the first position. It will be interesting to see if I will manage to keep it, because in my last international championship season it didn't go that great for me. I almost got relegated, but luckily managed to avoid that at the end. Then the first of my opponents that is on the list is SQ on the 49th position, just one place behind Diddley Squad, who was the opponent in the stage before for me in the World Championship. So according to the Glicker rating, both of them are on a very similar level. However, SQ has already shown with that win of the Intermezzo Championship that he can put out some very strong performances. On the other hand, with him being on the 49th spot, maybe he is missing a little bit of consistency, but if he plays like in this Intermezzo Championship season, he will be a very, very tough opponent, so that will be interesting to see how he will perform in the stage. The next opponent that we have on the list is Flackk, who is on the 113th position, so not quite in the top 100, but not far apart from that, so definitely a solid position in the ranking. And then the last one of my opponents, Healing Aura, is, as you can see, at the 431th position in the Glicker rating, so he is a bit behind, but as you can see, he is making a lot of places and is going upwards quite quickly, So I'm not sure. Maybe he's just started playing in tournaments not that long ago, and no, so we definitely shouldn't underestimate him. He has earned his place in this upper bracket of the stage with winning all of the stages before, and already beating some other strong opponents, and is maybe a bit the underdog with his position in the rating. But as said, definitely we shouldn't underestimate him. And now that we have also taken a look at the Glicker rating, we will take a look at the first game. And this first game, this time, will actually be a two-player game, because no, I had some time the recent days, and just after the two-player game started, and then I and Flackk just decided to finish one of the two-player games in 2 days, and so we can now start with a two-player game to take a look at the results of this stage. And in this game I'm playing in the first position. First of all, as always, of course, we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And we can see that there are two nice culture leaders with Bach and Anthony Gaudi in the game. However, there is no Hollywood in the end, there is no Gandhi, so it's definitely, of course, it can work out nicely as always in a two-player game to go for one of those culture leaders, but maybe there is also some other stuff possible. There's also Bill Gates in H3, Marie Curie, so some lab synergy. Fleming is there, so one big culture leader in H3, or theater and library leaders. Of course, most of the leaders are producing culture, but you know what I mean. Then we have Peer, so some synergy for arenas. Mandela is there, also Churchill. We have no space flight, the fast food chains are there, United Nations, no Red Cross, no Manhattan Project. In H2 there's no ocean liner service, no Suez Canal, but there is the Harvard College, the railroad, S2 strong economical wonders, also the Kremlin. We have one military action leader in H2 with Napoleon, there's James Watt, there are Newton and Nobel for some nice economical value available. In H1 we have the two science wonders with Silk Road and Universitas, and the two strength wonders with Great Wall and Himeji Castle. Then we have also one military action leader in H1 with Joan of Arc, Nostradamus, Genghis Khan and Barbarossa can also all help with the strength. Michelangelo can maybe work nicely with some of those wonders, and Isabella is just a solid leader and potentially can go for a colonization game, but sadly there's no payoff in this game, no big payoff with the Suez Canal. I'm in first position, and as you can see I actually take the Richland here. That of course was not the first option that I considered, but I just didn't like the other options that much. Of course one of the things that I considered first was to just take the Roman roads, a very solid wonder, especially when we consider that the other wonders are Colosseum, Hanging Gardens and Colossus. There's no Suez Canal, I just don't like the Colosseum that much, especially in two-player games. Maybe would even prefer to go for the Hanging Gardens, but the Colossus I don't like that much. So the Rome Roads would probably just be the best wonder to get, and so of course that was the first thing that I considered. And I thought that it's very likely that Flackk might just take Confucius then, who is probably the best leader available here. And then if he takes Confucius, then the Engineering Genius will stay on two civil actions. Either I can take the Engineering Genius, but if I also want to take a leader, then I maybe have to take Aristotle, pick Engineering Genius, build a mine, and it could maybe work out somewhat fine. With the Engineering Genius I can finish the Rome roads very quickly, but it also takes a lot of civil actions, and with already having the Rome roads and with it being a two-player game, so it sometimes can be important to have some free civil actions to take some stuff away from your opponents. I think that can be quite tricky to play like that. And so I didn't like it too much. It could be fine. Of course, I can also not take the Engineering Genius, but then Flackk gets Confucius, gets the Engineering Genius. I can either go for one of those HA wonders, or with having some additional science from Confucius, can maybe just skip the HA wonder. And there are some interesting H1 wonders in the mix that are nice to get early. So I didn't like it too much to go for the Rome roads. Maybe what could be interesting is if Flackk then goes for Confucius, is if Hammurabi is revealed. Maybe then I could just pick the Engineering Genius in the second turn and then go for Hammurabi. But then I can't rush out the Rome roads if I go for Hammurabi in the third turn. If I want to take and elect him, then I don't have enough civil actions left to finish the Rome roads. Of course, I could then build a lab, so that could be fine, but I also don't know if Hammurabi will be revealed. So at the end, I didn't like it too much to go for the Rome roads. I could also just grab Aristotle, but that I really didn't like that much. Then Flackk maybe can just take Rome roads and frugality, probably gets the best wonder out of those here. And then, with I having already committed to a leader, he then can just get Confucius as well at the next turn. And I could then maybe just take the Engineering Genius, but again for 2 civil actions, which is not ideal, and so I also didn't like that. And at the end I just went for the rich land. That has some advantages. First of all, if Flackk now goes for Rome Roads and Frugality, then I can just go for Confucius, probably get the best leader for myself. I then would very likely just leave the Engineering Genius for 1 civil action to Flackk, but I have Confucius, and Flackk doesn't get any of those leaders in a row, so he has to hope that he gets a leader from the ones that are to be revealed. If Hammurabi is revealed, then it's maybe not too bad for him, but if not, then it could be a bit tricky for him. And I thought that could be fine. And if Flackk now just takes Confucius, at least with me already having taken the rich land, then the Engineering Genius drops down to 1 civil action. So I can maybe just go for Aristotle Engineering Genius, or maybe even if Hammurabi comes out, can wait for Hammurabi and take the Engineering Genius. So at the end I just liked it a bit more so that that Flackk doesn't that easily get a nice combination, that he can't that easily let Engineering Genius stay on 2 civil actions, and so I at the end like this option the most with going for the rich land. I was interested to see what option Flackk will go for, and he goes for the Roman road, so he leaves me Confucius, but lets the Engineering Genius stay on 2 civil actions, and if Hammurabi comes out, I think that's very fine. Even if not, it is still somewhat fine, but then maybe not as strong. And there is no Hammurabi, which I was very happy to see. Only Moses, so if I go for Confucius now, Flackk only has the option to go for Moses. And of course I did put a little bit of thought if I want to deny the Engineering Genius, because maybe that's annoying then for Flackk. He would then only, if he doesn't want to pay 2 civil actions for Moses, could only take 2 very bad HA cards, but I would have to miss out on some stuff, would have to delay some economical value, either missing out on electing Confucius or building the mine, and I wasn't willing to do that, especially because there might be very interesting cards revealed soon, like an early iron or something like that. And so I just went for Confucius like that. Of course, I could consider taking the Colosseum, but as said, I just don't really like it that much. Of course, if I don't take a wonder here, then only the Colossus will be available for me at the next turn. There's no Suez Canal. With that, I don't like the Colossus that much. It could still be fine. I'm playing Confucius, so getting some additional strength and an additional colonization bonus can make more events viable for me. But I just thought that I maybe just want to skip the HA leader. That was basically the plan. Since I started a rich land, if Flackk goes for the Rome roads, I thought that I might likely skip the HA wonder, because there are Universitas and Silk Road, so 2 very interesting wonders to get. If one of those should be available early, and with the additional science from Confucius, I also can easily go for alchemy, iron, or some stuff like this. And I just thought I hopefully will have ways to invest into my infrastructure. But at the next gen I could still have the option to go for the Colossus if I want to. I draw the Pestilence and the Blunder, and Flackk will go for building the lab. Building the mine, increases his population, takes the Engineering Genius into Frugality. I don't think there are a lot of alternatives for him here. Going for Moses for 2 civil actions doesn't seem to be a good decision, especially with, for example, just Isabella coming down the row, and then maybe he can just save the civil action that he spends on taking HA leader. I this turn started with seeding the Aggression into the deck for 1 additional science. I could have also seeded a Pestilence. I will take the Irrigation likely, depending on what development is revealed, and then maybe it could be fine. On the other hand, Flackk will have an additional yellow token, maybe will still go for Moses, so I at the end didn't like it too much to already commit to the Pestilence, rather seeded an event to get 1 additional science. The development of warfare is revealed, and the question is, do I want to take it or not, because before it was revealed my plan was to just use the population to build a 2nd lab, then maybe take the irrigation. I also thought about taking the Great Wall, but I didn't like it too much. I wanted to leave myself maybe rather open for Silk Road or Universitas, but I could potentially consider it to spend my civil actions like that. But I thought about just building the lab definitely and then taking some stuff. But now, if I want to take the Free Warrior, I can't build the 2nd lab. But I was still willing to do it. Additional strength could be nice and could help me pushing the deck forward. If it is flipped very quickly, then the additional strength could potentially be helpful. And at the end, I have to spend my civil action somehow, and I took the irrigation, and I can then just develop it and start building on it immediately. Like this, I get some additional food production going. I don't go into consumption yet, and with the additional upgrade, I will have 5 food guaranteed at the next turn, meaning that I am guaranteed to be able to increase my population 2 times and then build second lab already the next turn so that I don't delay my science too much. That requires 3 civil actions to do it, so with the 1 civil action I thought that I can maybe just pick the knights, or maybe a wonder like Great Wall or Himeji Castle, and I thought I was hoping that that might be fine. Then I draw 2 cards, the Foray and the Medieval Army Tactic. With the Tactic, of course, the Knights gets an interesting, is now an interesting technology for me. Flack Seeds and the development of crafts are revealed. There's some additional resource for everyone. He will use the Engineering Genius in the Rome Roads and will just finish the Rome Roads. Doesn't go for a leader yet. Maybe can go for Joan of Arc at the next turn and just gets the additional value of the Rome Roads going and also gets the civil actions out of the way. Now it is my turn. I have to think about what I want to seed. I could just seed a Pestilence now that I have gone for the irrigation, but Flack also, as said, has the additional yellow tokens, will save up some food as well, has already used the Frugality and has now another Frugality in hand, so I still wasn't certain if I want to seed a Pestilence, and I at the end came to the conclusion that I maybe even want to start pushing a little bit of military, because at the moment I don't have anything very nice to invest into anyway, and so I at the end made a decision to seed a Foray. And with the Foray I revealed the development of markets, so even more stuff to be gained. I kinda, if I want to play my turn like I planned, have to take the 2 food, because that will only generate 1 additional blue token, and if I take resources then I would have some corruption issues, but with taking 2 food I can now increase my population 2 times, I can build a second lab to get some additional science going, and then I can take the knights, and thanks to the additional science from Confucius I will be able to go for knights at the next turn hopefully. And then with the Medieval Army Tactic I was hoping that maybe I will have a good chance to win the Foray and maybe do some nice stuff with the additional food or resources that I can gain from it. I definitely also considered going for Himeji Castle, for example, or the Great Wall, but Himeji Castle maybe a bit more. Like this I would have something guaranteed to invest my resources into, and there is Bach, Antoni Gaudi, so maybe having the Himeji Castle to hide behind and then going for a bit of a greedy culture play can definitely be potentially viable. But yeah, I maybe won't finish it that quickly. Now that I've committed to the Foray, I think I have to go for the Knights. I could have definitely alternatively seeded a Pestilence and then go for the Himeji Castle, but it doesn't contribute that much to my economy, and so at the end I rather wanted to leave myself open for either Silk Road or Universitas, but it's definitely something to consider, and depending on what play style you prefer, it's definitely a very fine move to take the Himeji Castle here, but then I think it's better to not seed the Foray. I draw the raid in the strategic territory. Flack will seed, so the event deck will indeed flip quite quickly, and after development of crafts, markets, now the development of trade routes is revealed, meaning Flack will have a lot of stuff lying around and maybe has some issues to get out of corruption. However, with the 1 additional resource from the trade routes and with taking 2 from markets, he has just enough to just take and finish the Himeji Castle. That gets him out of corruption, and yeah, I thought that was definitely a nice turn for him. Of course, he invests a lot of resource into it, but he needed to spend some resources anyway, and now he will start some culture production, and having the Himeji Castle in a 2-player game can definitely be quite strong and take some options away. And will make him quite safe now in case I go for some medieval armies. Then he is relatively safe. He is now has to skip Joan of Arc for it, but he maybe can go for one of the other leaders, and also is maybe starting to generate a little bit of a culture lead now. Also, it means of course that he gets stronger, which is a bit annoying. Now I have to make a decision if I'm willing to seed or not. And I know that the Foray is in there, I know that Flack seeded 2 events, there could potentially be a strength event among them, and even though of course I really would like to get a 1 additional science from Confucius, I at the end made the decision to not seed because I can get stronger this turn, and I didn't want to give the Foray to Flack. So I go for 1 knight, I reveal the Medieval Army Tactic, I still have to get out of corruption, I can do that with going for 1 more food upgrade, and then I take the breakthrough because I think some additional science can definitely be useful. With that I let the Code of Law staying on 2 civil actions for Flags. I think he really can't easily take it. Generally he might have a tough turn ahead of him because he has the irrigation, the iron available, and really some issues to get out of corruption. I was hoping now that I hopefully will manage to stay stronger so that I can continue seeding at the next turn. Flack seeds, no Foray revealed yet, instead a new deposit, so even more stuff is gained from the events, now from the H1 events, 4 resource for Flack. He again has a lot of issues to get out of corruption. and this turn he will just accept to have corruption. He will go for the iron and just build a 4th iron mine. He has accumulated a lot of food with the additional yellow tokens from the Rome roads, has still the frugality in hand, so maybe he can afford putting another population into the iron, and with that has the potential to go for a lot of resource production. But also it has some downsides. He will now miss out on the irrigation, so he could potentially get issues with this population at some point, and he's now very low in science, but at least the Rome roads will help with that soon, and maybe if he manages to put those resources to good use, that has definitely quite some potential. But with him committing to a 4th mine, and with him skipping the irrigation, and with me having the irrigation ongoing, now it was definitely clear what event I want to see it at my next turn, and that is the Pestilence. I just think that has now quite some nice potential, and hopefully will disrupt the Flackk a little bit, or will, no, maybe it just will be a bit annoying for him having to lose a population later on. The event revealed is the Fray, which is a bit helpful for me, because if it isn't revealed, I have 5 food, meaning I can only increase my population 1 time, and I probably would have to accept corruption, which is not ideal, but with the Fray I can actually get out of corruption. It still was a bit of a question, what do I want to do? Which leader do I want to go for? Do I maybe want to prepare to go for Barbarossa at the next turn? Do I even want to go for Barbarossa this turn and get some activations out of him immediately? But to get out of corruption I would have to increase my population once normally as well, meaning I would skip the Code of Laws and the Monarchy. I would stay on 4 civil actions, and that can be a bit tricky, especially in 2-player games with only 2 H2 government forms that can potentially be denied by your opponent. So I didn't like it too much, and to get out of corruption I kinda have to build this addition and 1 additional knight this turn, also maybe to again make sure that I stay stronger for potential strength events from Flackk. And with that I thought I don't really want to prepare for Barbarossa for the next turn, because of course I could go for even more medieval armies, but what does it actually do it for me? I have an aggression in hand, maybe I can do something with it, but Flackk has the Magic Castle, and with that I didn't really want to commit to a very big strength push or something like that. So instead I just thought I rather want to wait for hopefully Nostradamus, and if not maybe Genghis Khan, just for a little bit of additional culture. And now this turn I just took 3 food from the foray. The reason for that is that now if I increase my population 2 times, I still have enough food to increase my population another time at the next turn. This turn I can now get out of corruption with building a knight and building a religion. We are now already at the H1 event, so there won't be development of religion, so hopefully it will be somewhat useful to have this religion, especially also if I go for Bach or Antoni Gaudi, it will produce a little bit of culture. Also it could potentially be that Flackk has seated a rebellion. He definitely stayed on this part of his yellow bank for quite a while, so also for that it prevents a little bit of damage. And now that I've gotten out of corruption with my last civil action, I really wanted to have this Code of Laws, because I didn't want to be in danger of being stuck on 4 civil actions for a long time. With the additional science from Confucius I can already develop the Code of Laws at the next turn, and then at least go up to 5 civil actions, and with being able to increase my population at the next turn, I thought it could even be an interesting idea to just build an additional farm at the next turn. Then I again will be at, I will spend all of my food, but I will be at +4 food production, meaning I can again increase my population at the following turn, and then I have a lot of food production going, and hopefully can do some nice stuff with all of this population. Then I draw the Kidnap, so I probably will just seed 1 of those aggressions into the deck with Confucius at the next turn. Flackk will increase his population, takes the cultural heritage. I think the additional science is definitely very useful for him. He builds an additional religion and builds a warrior. I was very interested. I found it very interesting to see him building this religion. It definitely made me a bit suspicious about a rebellion coming, because instead he could have just increased his population. But no, it at least gives him a bit of additional culture production, prepares him also for some leaders like Bach and Gaudi, so maybe he just wanted to build his religion, but I was a little bit suspicious that it could have to do something with a rebellion coming. But nonetheless, I still wanted to continue seeding and get the additional science from Confucius. I made a decision to seed the Kidnap into the deck, and the event revealed is the Blunder that I have seeded into the deck earlier. I developed a Code of Laws, but as you can see I don't use the Breakthrough. It doesn't necessarily have to do anything with Dark Ages to make this decision, even though of course it could potentially be an event in there, with the Flackk only having 3 signs, but the main reason for that is actually that I plan to go for the Silk Road at the next turn, and I was hoping that very likely I either have to go for something like bread and circuses soon, or maybe want to go for something like iron soon. So I was hoping that I will develop one more technology before going for a government farm ideally. And then I thought that I can just wait with the breakthrough until I have built the first step of the Silk Road to get one additional science out of it. And additionally it also prepares me a bit for the Dark Ages in case those should indeed be coming. And after having developed the Code of Laws, I have some civil actions left. As said, to get out of corruption, I thought it is a nice idea to increase my population and build even an additional farm, going now up to 4 food production, being able to increase my population again at the next turn. I could potentially think about the drama, because there is Bach in the game, there's Godi in the game, I have a lot of food production, I have low resource production, so the drama definitely opens up some possibilities for me, and also takes some possibilities away from Flackk, who has the Michi Castle to hide behind, and doesn't have a lot of science, so if he just develops drama with Godi and Bach and builds some of those, he can maybe generate quite a culture lead with maybe being relatively safe with the Michi Castle. But I at the end rather wanted to have some other stuff. There are at least 2 copies of operas that I maybe also can go for, even though of course those are quite a bit more expensive. And there are also some other reasons, because I really thought this frugality could be an important card to have, which at a first look maybe sounds a bit weird with me having that much food production, but the problem is, if I increase my population without it at the next turn, I will have 1 more population. In 2 turns the age will end, I will lose 2 yellow tokens, I will have uprising issue, and I actually will already be in the next part of the yellow bank, because I had that much additional food from the event and from going for this irrigation this early. And then with having 4 food I won't be able to increase my population. I could then just go for bread and circuses, but potentially that could be denied, but that wasn't even my main concern. My main thought was just it could be nice to not be forced to go for the bread and circuses, and with the frugality, if I use it at the next turn to increase my population, I then will have 6 food in 2 turns, meaning I can also just increase my population at the cost of 5 food, and then avoid the uprising like this. That could potentially be disrupted if the pestilence is revealed, then I'm kind of forced to go for the bread and circuses. But if not, then I could potentially consider if it is maybe costly to go for the bread and circuses, or if there are other strong options, I'm not forced to go into it. And with that I thought of frugality is actually, even though I already have a lot of food, quite an important card. And then I also wanted to take the rich land, because I said I plan to go for the Silk Road. I have now a lot of yellow cards in hand that I can use for that, get some additional science from the Silk Road, and so that was my plan for the next turn. And for the next turn I also was hoping that maybe I could still get Nostradamus. I thought maybe Flackk will go for him, because the only other leader left would be Genghis Khan, who is not really doing that much for me apart from scoring me a bit of additional culture. But Flackk, it would be a bit costly for him. Maybe he also wants to have the drama, maybe he wants to get out of corruption, and so I was hoping that maybe there's a chance that I get Nostradamus at the next turn for 1 civil action, and with that get a very decent H1 leader going. Then also with taking no cards at all, it's basically guaranteed that I will get another turn in H1, not losing Confucius, and having the chance to maybe get a civil action back if I go for a new leader. I draw the plunder and a scientific breakthrough. Flackk will go for 1 more upgrade. Another upgrade is now at 8 resource production, increases his population, and then takes the drama, so he indeed wants to be prepared to maybe go for one of those culture leaders, but doesn't go for Nostradamus, which at least I was happy to see. And he interestingly builds a warrior. Maybe he's afraid of an aggression, afraid of potentially having to sacrifice, but on the other hand I have Confucius, I want to see it. And now when the age will end, he will be at 3 food when the 2 yellow tokens are lost to the end of the age. Then he actually has an uprising issue, so I'm not sure if it is the correct move to build this warrior, but maybe he just thought it can be fine to delete 1 mine then. But no, I thought that building this warrior is maybe not really necessary, but maybe he was just afraid of potentially having to sacrifice or something like this. Now it's my turn. I didn't want to push the scientific breakthrough, because I don't know yet who will invest into a lot of science upgrades, and I also thought that maybe I don't need the science as much. Of course the aggression also gives science, but only 1. And the event on top that was seeded by Flackk is actually the knowledge of the ancients, and with me having skipped the HA wonder, that is of course one that is quite swingy. Me getting not any science and Flackk scoring 3 science, and those 3 science are actually quite helpful for him, I think. is definitely a bit of a swing, so I was not too happy to see this event. Then this turn Nostradamus is available, so of course I want to go for him and I can elect him immediately. I elect him just at the moment when the deck is flipped, so hopefully I will gain the full knowledge about the next event deck and score some culture, hopefully with seeding in some events. And of course also a reason to not seed a scientific breakthrough with Confucius is so that I can potentially seed it with Nostradamus in case I don't draw any other event. That of course is maybe even the bigger reason. I go for Nostradamus now. I also go for the Silk Road. I definitely thought about Universitas, maybe preparing for it with taking the Engineering Genius. But if I want to use the Frugality, which I kinda want to do to not be forced to go for the Bread and Circus at the next turn, then I can't easily get out of Corruption. So that would be a bit awkward, also if I prepare for the Universitas, Flackk could just take the Universitas, accept Corruption, and say the Universitas just helps me quite a bit with getting some additional science, making it a lot easier to play the remaining game, and then I would be without a wonder at all. So I think I kinda have to go for the Silk Road here, and I also think it is quite a nice wonder for me, and then I will actually use the Frugality before I build a step, because otherwise I would have corruption issues, so sadly I miss out on one food value, but yeah, I just kinda out of corruption otherwise without committing to another religion or something like this, which I didn't really want to, because I thought I might want to go for the Bread and Circus, especially with Pierre being in the game, with Anthony Gaudi also being in the game, so I didn't want to commit to another religion, use the Frugality without the Silk Road bonus. Now I have one civil action left. I could potentially take a card like Swordsman or Warfare, those could potentially be fine to have, also maybe the Alchemy, but I just thought there will be H2 cards soon, and I rather want to have more civil actions in one of the following turns, like this, with having built one stage of the Silk Road. For example, I have the option to just finish the Silk Road at the next turn and increase my population, and then I still have one civil action left. There could be cards available like Ridgeland and Breakthrough, which are quite valuable to have with the Silk Road, and so I just wanted to be already one step ahead, because I thought the civil actions might be more valuable at the following turns, and yeah. So that was my thought. Maybe I also want to go for Bread and Circuses at the next turn, because the thing is, I don't have knowledge about Rebellion, and I will have a lot of unhappy workers soon, which definitely worried me a bit. The age will end now, and with being at 3 food, Flackk has a bit of an issue with Uprising. He is, first of all, H2 starts. He is actually willing to seed, even though he's weaker, but he probably isn't getting stronger anyway. And with that he seeds, the Pestilence is revealed, which I was not too happy to see. At least it's no Rebellion, so that is first of all good news, but it's also not too great for me, because first of all I would have preferred if Flackk has actually to delete something to fix the Uprising and then he loses it to the Pestilence. Now he basically can just lose something to the Pestilence, increase his population, and then he has fixed his Uprising issue in a very nice fashion. And for me it means that I kinda am forced to go for the Bread and Circuses to fix my Uprising issues, because with losing a population, even if I increase my population, I will still have Uprising issues. So the Pestilence is revealed. Flackk makes the decision to lose his mine now, but no, so it still was somewhat fine, I think, to build it. He lost it now without really losing a civil action, and then he builds one drama, maybe to just start some culture production, but with him being willing to seed, with being the weaker player, and with him now building another happy face, I was somewhat suspicious that there might indeed be a rebellion coming, and I was a bit worried about that. So yeah, he starts some culture production. He might still be able to take Universitas at the next turn. He then will finish it one turn later, but at least he has this drama going now. And yeah, so and with this last civil action, he is taking the Engineering Genius, maybe in preparation of either the Universitas or one of the H2 wonders. The Harvard College, of course, also would be very strong for him. Now, with those indicators, and with me having actually 3 unhappy workers, of course, there can only be one right decision for me at my politics phase, and that is to seed the barbarians into the deck. Yeah, so here I decided to take maybe a bit of an unnecessary risk. My first instinct, as you probably would think, was of course that I definitely don't want to seed, that it's not worth it to take the risk. But I then thought about what turn I want to do. I thought about what would happen if I actually get hit by the rebellion. That would definitely be bad. I would not like to get hit by the rebellion here. But the thing is, my turn that I first thought about was to go for Bread and Circuses, develop it, build one, increase my population to get out of corruption. Then I have of course more happy faces, but I also I have still one unhappy worker after my turn, so a rebellion would still be somewhat annoying. Of course, the rebellion now would be very, very bad. I would lose all of my civil action. I would need to delete a warrior to fix the uprising issue. But then the rebellion is out, and maybe I'm not forced then to invest into bread and circuses, meaning I could maybe go for iron directly, maybe just take the bread and circuses in hand at the next turn, meaning that it could potentially mean I get into an H2 government form quicker. Of course it would be annoying, but with me still being vulnerable to an aggression at a turn after, to the rebellion a turn after, and the two civil actions maybe then being revealed when I lose them then. Maybe then are some important H2 cards in a row that I have to grab. So of course it would be quite annoying and I would not prefer to see the rebellion now. It would be quite bad, especially because I have to delete a warrior. But even though it would be quite bad, now that it isn't revealed, I have to spend my whole turn basically building a bread and circuses. I have to invest into it, some science. If I also want to go for the iron, it could mean at indeed that I have to go for a government form a little bit later. And so I thought, even though it looks like a very big disaster to see a rebellion revealed now, and it kind of would be, but I also thought maybe it's actually not that bad, even though it is, of course, very bad. So, and yeah, and so first of all, I also don't know for certain. Flackk is only one seeded, one event, even if it's in there, it doesn't need has to be revealed now. So if I figured that it would be a really, really big disaster, I would have skipped seeding here, and probably it's maybe the better decision to skip seeding here. But at the end, I somehow convinced myself that I wanted to see it, progress the deck forward quicker, because the barbarians will be nice to, if those hit Flackk. He already lost a population by the pestilence. It might be quite annoying for him to lose another population. And at the end, I actually made a decision to seed, and as you can see, I luckily don't get punished for it, so no rebellion revealed, instead just a kidnap. And now that there is no rebellion revealed, I of course don't want to delete anything, and I go for the bread and circuses. I'm now willing to invest into it, and then build one. And as said, my first instinct was of course to just increase my population, get out of corruption, and that was also the reason why I was willing to seed, even though there might be a rebellion revealed. But after I've seeded, I thought again about it, and I came to the conclusion that it might be better to not increase my population and instead take the rich land. Because with the Silk Road bonus, the rich land is worth 3 resources. I go into the next area of the yellow bank one turn, or I don't get into more consumption this turn already, meaning this one civil action basically gives me 3 resource and 1 food, but of course I lose now 2 resource to corruption, so basically 1 resource, 1 food for 1 civil action if I should manage to use the Silk Road bonus on both of those rich lands. And I thought it is somewhat fine, and that means that I'm not vulnerable to rebellion. If I would have thought about this turn earlier, with now not being in any danger of losing some civil actions to the rebellion, maybe I wouldn't have seeded. Probably I shouldn't have seeded anyway, but I somehow convinced myself into it, and yeah, so at the end I don't get punished for it, and now I actually am preparing for the rebellion, because I still thought of course it might be in there, and now with that I like that quite a bit more. I don't want to take the breakthrough, first of all because I think the resources are more important, and second of all because that would mean that the iron is discarded before my next turn. Now I draw 2 more events, which I was happy, so I hopefully will be able to seed almost every turn with Nostradamus, and Flackk has the chance to take the rebellion, and he also takes the chance, which I think is definitely the correct thing to do. He doesn't go for Genghis Khan, but especially if he has no tactic. I mean, he could copy to the medieval army tactic, but I think I agree that the science is maybe more important for him, but it means he has still not had any leader yet, which of course is a bit unusual, but yeah, he maybe all of the time had something more important to do, or maybe the leaders available were not ideal, and so he just takes the Republic, takes the breakthrough. The next turn he either can do a revolution to have more science left after he goes for the government form, but with the cultural heritage he also has the chance to go for it peacefully in case there's something like Harvard College that he can take, and yeah, that definitely might give his position quite a big boost, so I was not happy to see him get this early government form, but no. And now I have to hope that maybe the Conmon will also be available for me relatively soon. Now it's my turn, I want to seed, and I made the decision to seed a call to arms into the deck. I was not willing to commit to something like Cold of War yet, because it always can be that Flackk gets the Rifleman upgrades, and then the Cold War could also help him quite a bit with him not having the most science production. The Crime Wave might be fine, and the Call to Arms now that Flackk goes into Republic maybe could even be nice for him if he has more civil actions and not that many military actions. But I still thought there might be a lot of stuff to do for him with going for some interesting wonders like Harvard College, and him missing 2 civil actions at some point could be quite bad. So I was at the end, I thought that the Call to Arms is the best event for me to seed, and as we can see, the one event that I don't have knowledge about is actually no rebellion. Also, Flackk at the turn before seeded, actually, or not the turn before, but 2 turns before, and I didn't tell you yet what he seeded. He seeded a border conflict into the deck, interestingly, so he pushed the strength event. So it's interesting to see if he managed to win this at the end. And the historic territory is revealed now. I was, I think, even willing to bid a knight potentially, but definitely a warrior. And Flackk, with having low population, makes the decision to not bid for it. And so I was happy to get it for only a warrior. The happy face might be useful at some point, because I will go down relatively deep into my yellow bank very quickly. So then, with only having an H1 happy face solution, that is definitely quite nice. Also the 6th culture. I hopefully will still have a little bit less culture than Flackk, so that I don't get hit by the barbarians. Also that I can make sure that Flackk gets hit by the barbarians. And so I was happy to see this revealed, and so actually there was no rebellion in the deck at the end. I take the iron here, because I think it's good to start some production, and then I will go for 1 upgrade, and I considered some different options. Because I came to the conclusion that I really want to take this copy of Opera. Flackk has the Magic Castle. If he goes for leader like Bach or maybe Gaudi, I don't want to be forced to compete in the military with him, and I thought then having the Opera is just very important. That opens myself up to either go for Bach or for Anthony Gaudi. Both of them would be quite strong for me, and then maybe with having a bit better of an economy, which is not necessarily the case. If Flackk goes for a lot of civil actions and then gets something like Harvard College soon and also selective breedings going, he definitely can fix this economy. But at the moment I have a lot more population. I will now fix my resource production. I will get a Silk Road, and so I was hoping that I might have the more flexible and economically stronger position, and I was hoping that then maybe I can just outculture him potentially, and for that I need the Opera. And I could, to get out of corruption now, just increase my population, take the Opera. That's why I didn't use the rich land yet. But at the end I made a decision that I rather want to use a rich land and still take the Opera. With that I've spent all of my resources. I will have only food corruption. So I gain 1 more upgrade going this turn, and I make sure to use the Silk Road bonus of the rich land this turn, meaning that I can easily use the rich land the Silk Road bonus of the rich land at the following turn as well. And I only lose 2 food. I have a lot of food anyway, so I thought losing those 2 food is not that bad, and getting more resources is way more important. And at the next turn maybe I can potentially finish the Silk Road, go for 1 more upgrade, increase my population, or of course if there are some important cards to take, then I can also just maybe increase my population 1 or 2 times and take some cards. So that were my thoughts for the next turn. I keep the 2 H2 events and draw some more events, the inhabited territory and the economic progress. And now, as you can see, there is the Conmon available in the card row, which I was not too happy to see. I thought it might be the correct choice for Flackk to just deny it, and making sure that I am forced to stay on 5 civil actions and without a government form for a while, also without the additional urban building limit, which could get relevant at some point. We both go for a culture leader. So I expected him to play the cultural heritage, go for the Republic and take the Conmon, but interestingly he just takes the Conmon, so which is quite costly, losing the civil actions and also this turn, and also generally being on less civil actions with the Conmon. If there are wonders coming down the road that he wants to take it the next turn, he could potentially regret it or maybe also together with the leader that he wants to take. On one hand, on the other hand, of course, long term it could be dangerous, with him being only on warriors at the moment, not having the most science, and then also being on 2 military actions. That could potentially be quite dangerous for him, so I can also understand why he wants to go for the Conmon, but it is definitely quite a bit of value lost. but long term it definitely could be a lot safer for him to be in 4 military actions with that. If going for Conmon, he fixes his civil and military actions at the same time, so it is quite costly, but definitely also an understandable decision. And like this, he denies the Conmon from me, meaning I will be without a government form for a while, which is definitely a bit dangerous. After I saw the Conmon revealed, and with me thinking that maybe Flackk will just develop the Republic and take the Conmon, I thought maybe I could go for Napoleon, with Flackk having only those warriors, with being in 2 military actions, but I don't have any military cards yet. I don't know if I get a strategy, I don't have a tactic yet, and with that I just still thought I want to go for one of those culture leaders, and hopefully I will somehow manage, even though I miss out on a government form, to produce some peaceful culture and maybe win the game like this. This turn I seeded a Cold War into the deck, because Flackk very likely will spend a lot of science in the Conmon, and I just was hoping, with me having a lot of population, with the selective breedings being late and maybe also not that easy for Flackk to get into with being low in science, that I will have the chance to win the Cold War. I was really hoping that I will win it, because Flackk, the 6 additional science, could be very strong for him, but it could also be very strong for me, especially now that I maybe have to hope to get an H3 government form at some point, which is quite expensive. Then I just thought the 6 science could be very strong, and with that I was willing to cede it. The raid is revealed, scoring 1 additional science for everyone, and this turn I go for 1 more upgrade using a rich land bonus. I thought about building an additional warrior, increasing my population and building an additional warrior, because now when I finish the Silk Road I can't do that, and the 3 H1 events that are coming are Call to Arms Barbarians and Border Conflict. For Call to Arms and Barbarians the warrior doesn't really make a difference, but if Flackk should decide to cede, and he has knowledge about a border conflict because he has ceded it himself, and then the border conflict could be revealed now, and it could then sadly I would not get the additional resources out of it. So I thought about not finishing the Silk Road, building the warrior instead, but if I do this, then even if I increase my population 2 times, I have not enough. It's not enough to get out of corruption, so I maybe would have to skip using the Richland, but I then don't use it at all. And so I just didn't like it too much. I liked it to finally get the Silk Road finished, get additional science production going, finish all of my economical upgrades, and it's only 1 event, and if it at the end happens that Flackk wins and loses at the same time with me having Nostradamus, then it's maybe also not the worst to happen. But of course I would like to get 3 additional resources from the event, but at the end I was not willing to build a warrior this turn. And then I increase my population to get out of corruption. I keep the crime wave and economic progress. I draw the international agreement. Flackk is... We are relatively close in culture thanks to me having Nostradamus, but Flackk will stay with a little bit of a lead, so hopefully I will be able to win or to make him lose to the barbarians. Flackk this turn will go for the Conmon, has now a government form, and as you can see there is also Bach on the row, and Flackk is willing to go for him immediately. He has the Michi Castle, he has drama, so he is maybe just hoping to start generating quite a bit of a culture lead now, with me not easily being able to punish him in the military. So I was now hoping that maybe Antoni Gaudi will be available soon, and then I can just start building some operas, maybe even if I could get a copy of journalism, and then I was hoping that I won't really fall behind in culture that much. Flackk will even upgrade a lab to drama, very interestingly. Could have also upgraded a religion to get more culture production, and science production of course could still be somewhat useful for him, so the first look looks just like a very greedy move, but there might definitely be a reason behind this, another reason, apart from, and being greedy definitely can sometimes be reason enough in 2-player games, but I think another reason for that might very likely be that he has this engineering genius in hand, and there is the Kremlin available for me the next turn, meaning if the other wonders are maybe late, he could now have the option with this many resources to just take and finish the Kremlin, and thanks to having converted the lab into the drama, he still would have enough happy faces to not have uprising issues, and otherwise he would have some uprising issues. He could of course after finishing the Kremlin maybe then at the next turn convert the lab to drama, but maybe he also wants to be able to take a card if there's something like cannons or revolutionary idea available, so with that it actually makes sense if his plan is to go for the Kremlin at the next turn. Now it is my turn, and I made a decision to see the crime wave, which is maybe a less not that swingy of an event. And with it taking a little while until those events are revealed, I wanted to see an event first that is maybe not that swingy, and the border conflict is revealed, so I was happy to see that Flackk didn't see it, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to gain the 3 additional resources out of it. And now I have quite a bunch of resources. I definitely wanted to take the cannons and this copy so that the other one is discarded and Flackk doesn't have it available. I thought about if I also want to deny the rifleman from him, because then he is without cannons and rifleman, and the cavalrymen are gone, meaning if I take the rifleman now, he is stuck on those warriors, and that of course could be very dangerous for him. So it's definitely an appealing option, but the problem is I'm still in 2 military actions. I don't know yet if I get the strategy or not, so I could also definitely happen that I pay 3 civil actions for the rifleman now, and then it just doesn't do anything. Of course, maybe I will draw a tactic for it and I can use it then, but myself, but it's definitely very expensive. I'm only on 5 civil actions. I will probably be without a government form for a little while longer, and with that, I have to be a bit careful on how I spend my civil actions, so definitely was something that I considered, but with having not a clear way how to punish it, then I at the end wasn't willing to do it, and Flackk spending 2 civil actions to take the rifleman already would take the option away from him to just go for the gremlin, which he kinda indicated that he might want to do it at the next turn, so at least he has to sacrifice some stuff to take the rifleman, and with that I was not willing to take it. The question is, of course, what do I want to do for myself now? How do I want to get out of corruption? A potentially interesting option could be the Kremlin here, to make sure that I get a bit more civil and military actions. Maybe I should actually go for it. I think I maybe didn't consider it as much during the game as I should have, especially because maybe it also takes no option away from Flackk, but he then can try and maybe just take the railroad. He can't finish it immediately, but it could still be useful with the strength, and the Cold War is coming, so I maybe shouldn't necessarily take it because of a denial. There's also still the Howard College in the game. But it could definitely be useful for myself, but it also would cost a lot of resources. I maybe would just want to build a lot of operas and journalisms potentially. So I think I definitely should have considered it more than I did during the game, but I think it's also fine to not go for it. As I take the cannons, increase my population. I increased my population another time, and then my idea was to just develop the opera and build one opera, which on one hand felt very bad because I could save quite a bit of science with Antoni Gaudi, and the science could be quite useful with me still hoping to get a government form from age 3 at some point. But it could also be nice to have already spent the civil actions, to leave me more flexible for the next turns, and also to just start some culture production so that I don't fall behind too much. And so it was something that I considered, but I thought science that I might save with Antoni Gaudi could still be quite valuable, and at the end, with me having a bunch of free population, I made a decision to actually build an additional mine, going up to 8 resource production, and I thought that could also be nice. Building all of those H2 urban buildings takes a lot of resources, so spending now the resource to maybe get one more mine going could also be quite helpful on the long run of the game, and at the end I committed to that, hoping that maybe Antoni Gaudi might be available for me the next turn so that I can start building some operas, generating some culture, and developing the opera with the science discount from him. And now I have 1 civil action left, which I can't spend that easily. I could just develop something, but I don't want to commit any science, and so I just took the efficient upgrade, and I didn't build a warrior yet because it would cost me 1 draw. It could be that I just draw something like fortifications or mobile artillery or hussars, and the next 2 events I at the moment have enough strength for anyway with Nostradamus. I draw a war of territory and a colonization card. And Flackk first of all cedes, loses to the barbarians, will lose 1 population now, actually loses a farm, which of course is quite a bit costly for him. No, boosting a warrior maybe also would be a bit risky. Could maybe be an idea, but no, he also would definitely be a bit risky, and so he will indeed go for the Gremlin now, finishes it, doesn't use the Engineering Genius interestingly, maybe is still hoping that he can go for another wonder, Maybe he could have also just used it. Of course, it means corruption, but it still saves him one resource if he at the end isn't able to use it. But there is still the Harvard College, so there is definitely also still a chance that he might be able to use it. But taking and finishing the Gremlin will actually mean that he doesn't take the Rifleman, and with him taking the Revolutionary Idea, which is of course a very strong card for him, he will actually skip the Rifleman, meaning with all of those military technologies gone, he will indeed be stuck with only warriors for a while, which is of course a bit risky for him. But even if I get the strategy, I mean, if I would have a tactic already right now, stuff might get dangerous for him. But at least he has the Magic Castle. He has now 5 military actions. Can maybe defend against aggressions in case of emergency with sacrificing a warrior. So yeah. Maybe that could in the end be more important to have even more additional civil and military actions. Now he generates even more culture now, meaning that his culture lead will even be bigger. Soon the Rome roads will switch to culture as well. Then we will actually be at 0 science production, so that might be quite risky, but I was definitely worried, especially with Anthony Gaudi not showing yet, that he is now generating a bit too much of a culture lead and that it could cause some issues for me. But at least one thing that definitely went very nicely for me is that I drew a lot of events for Nostradamus while only having 2 military actions, meaning I can seed again, and with the culture from Nostradamus and seeding, at least I somewhat keep up with the culture or not fall behind too much too quickly. I made this decision to seed the international agreement. First I thought I want to seed the economic progress, because it might take a while until the international agreement is revealed and it's always uncertain how much value it will give. But I thought with me only having 2 military actions, it definitely could happen that there might be a turn where I can't use my politics phase anyway, and with me only being on 5 civil actions, I also thought that getting the additional civil actions from this international agreement could actually be quite strong for me, and with that I thought at the end that it might be the better event to seed into the deck. This turn, as you can see, I at the end made a decision to already commit to the opera. Anthony Gaudi sadly is still not available, and I kind of wanted to start the culture production. And also wanted to get those civil actions out of the way, because that was definitely also one of the reasons. I can build the opera, I can build a warrior that gets me out of corruption, makes sure that I'm stronger for the Cold War that is coming. And now this turn there was the very big question if I should deny the selective breeding from Flackk, because he at the moment is still stuck on this one farm, and the selective breeding definitely is a very helpful technology for him, especially because when he loses 2 yellow tokens he will actually have some famine issues, meaning he might have to delete a warrior or something like this to just rebuild his farm, which is why I thought that maybe losing a warrior to the barbarians might have been a good idea, so that he doesn't need to rebuild his farm in case I take the selective breeding away. But the question is if I should take it away. It definitely would cause some issues for Flackk if I take it away, but it also would be somewhat costly for me, because yeah, it cost me a lot of civil actions. I don't have the most hand space yet. I still need a lot of things there are still a lot of things that I want to do, going for Anthony Gaudi, building some more stuff, taking maybe the journalism, maybe the strategy if I get a chance, and it definitely costs me a lot of value. Instead of taking the selective breeding, I for example can increase my population and take 2 out of those cards. If I take the selective breeding now, I would also for example miss out on the Rifleman, but if I actually want to take those, we will have to discuss also as well. So it was a very close decision. The thing is, when Flackk goes for the selective breeding, he spends even more science, meaning when he then also loses the Rome Roads bonus, he might be very low on science, and it could be quite difficult for him to actually get an additional military technology out or anything at some point. So it is quite costly for him. He is only at 1 farm, so he can only go for 1 upgrade. He might just delete a warrior and go for a 2nd upgrade, so that he definitely can do, but then he gets the population is very low in science, and what does he actually want to do with the population? Does he want to build more warriors? He can't really build a lot more dramas. So I was hoping that with him being on low science, he won't be able to use the population as nicely. It of course helps him to fix his famine issues, so there is definitely a case that I should deny it, but it's also very late in the age. There could always be an early mechanized agriculture be revealed. If he doesn't want to go for the selective breeding, maybe he can a lot more easily deny something like strategy. So at the end, I made a decision to rather concentrate more on myself. I increased my population and then made the decision that I want to take 2 out of those 3 cards that are on the row. And the big question was, which of those cards do I actually want to take? I could have also not increased my population and actually taken all 3 of them, but then I would have a full hand with me still wanting to go for Anthony Gaudi, ideally at the next turn if he is available, to get a culture bonus going as quickly as possible. I wasn't really willing to take all 3 of the cards. And I considered basically all combinations. Breakthrough in Rifleman, Breakthrough in Reserves, and Rifleman in Reserves. The card that I really wanted to have the most is the Breakthrough, because the science could still be very, very important to get into an H3 government form to do all of the stuff that I want to do. But the problem with taking the Breakthrough is that it makes it a lot more likely that the H will end before my next turn, meaning that I could lose the ability to seed with Nostradamus one more time, and maybe if I indeed Anthony Gaudi is available for 2 or 3 civil actions, it could mean that I maybe can still get the civil action back when replacing him, and if I don't take the Breakthrough, it actually gets more likely. It's not certain or anything, but it definitely gets more likely or more difficult for Flackk to make sure that the H ends. But on the other hand, I leave him the Breakthrough. The science could still be useful for him at some point. Maybe he can then delay going for the selective breeding, develop the selective breeding at a turn after with the Breakthrough, and then he has already still somewhat bit of science saved up. There is another copy of Breakthrough coming, but that will be available for more expensive for him. And the Breakthrough is just very useful for me, the additional science. So at the end I kind of made a decision to take it. And that means that Flackk, for example, if he goes for selective breeding, develops it in one upgrade, can then take either way the Ridgeland, for example, and then he makes sure that the H ends, and then at the following turn he can maybe build an additional farm or something like this, or he builds an additional farm already this turn and goes for a relatively cheap upgrade with the Ridgeland, so he definitely can end the H then, but at the end I was willing to accept this. And then the question is, do I want to take the Reserves or the Rifleman? The Rifleman, of course, is a card that makes me a lot more flexible if I draw some tactics, but I have only very likely one H2 draw left, so it's very unlikely that I draw a tactic where I can use the Rifleman. At the moment my plan wasn't really to punish Flackk with the military, even though it is very appealing, of course, with them having no military technologies available at all. But I don't have any military actions, I don't know if I get a strategy, I don't know if I get a tactic, and the Rifleman would be a technology that I have in hand. I have to be a bit careful about hand space if I want to build a lot of operas. I mean, I can't build that many with still being on despotism, but on operas and then maybe journalisms. Then I also need a lot of resources. The reserves could also be nice for food, so at the end I actually made the decision to skip the Rifleman, because I just thought it's unlikely that I draw now a tactic where I can use the Rifleman, and then it's just maybe not that important to have it. Of course it could backfire, maybe I do draw a tactic, maybe I get some chances to punish Flackk with the military, but I just thought maybe I just focus completely on getting Anthony Gaudi going, producing some culture myself, and then maybe with having the better economy, with not having as many issues as Flackk, maybe I can then catch up the culture lead with some impacts, or maybe a nice wonder, or just overtaking him at some point in culture production. And with that I thought the reserves maybe contributes more towards that goal, and at the end I was even willing to skip the Rifleman completely. And I was also happy about this decision after I saw my draw, because I was very happy to see that I draw the mobile artillery. That definitely could open up some military options now. If I get a strategy or something like this, can maybe go for mobile artilleries and try to punish that Flackk has only warriors available. So I was very happy to see it, and now of course it also felt a lot better about not having taken the Rifleman, so that definitely worked out quite nicely for me. Flackk seeds and opens the Cold of War with that. I also see what he seeds, and I also forgot to talk about the event that he seeded before. So in the next event deck there are 2 events from me, the Crime Wave and the International Agreement, and 2 events from Flackk, the Ravages of Time and the Civil Unrest. So at least Nostradamus still gives me that value, but as we will see at Flack's turn, he will go for the selective breeding, upgrades 1 farm, and then takes the Ridgeland. I think he probably should have disbanded a warrior and already built a farm. That would mean that he can get out of corruption and produces him 1 additional food immediately, because I think he will actually do it at the next turn, or at least at one of the following turns, and So yeah, that I think could maybe be an idea, but it of course depends. Maybe he still wants to keep those warriors, but he has enough military actions to defend himself. At the moment, I'm not that threatening, so I think it could have been maybe worth it to put this warrior into farm and with that get out of corruption. And with taking the rich land, he will make sure that the age will end, meaning I won't sadly get a cult from Nostradamus if I would make the decision to see it. And it is also the big question if I do want to see it, because there are some events that are not ideal for me. The Ravages of Time would maybe be nice if it isn't revealed too quickly, even though Flackk losing the yellow token is also a bit annoying for him. It would actually cause some uprising issues for him. So it wouldn't be too bad, but maybe still maybe nice to have the Silk Road for a little bit longer. And then there could also be the civil unrest revealed. That would cost me some culture. So with that, of course, it could be argued that I don't want to see it. But there's also an event that could really help me in this situation, I think, and that is the international agreement, because I have a lot of stuff to do and getting the additional civil actions from the agreement, even though I can only take one card in hand, might be quite interesting, especially because maybe it could even give me the option to potentially deny the Harvard College from Flackk, because I was a bit worried that if he this next turn just takes and finishes the Harvard College, then he is at 3 science production again, and maybe can do some stuff in H3, and I didn't like that too much, so I thought it might be the value that I can get out of a potential international agreement is more valuable or more important than what I might potentially get hit by, like a civil unrest or losing the Silk Road a bit earlier, especially because when I don't seed, I miss out on the 2 cults from seeding. So at the end, I made a decision to seed, and I was very happy to see that indeed the international agreement is revealed. So that definitely opens up some options now for me. I thought about just taking Anthony Gaudi and then starting some culture production and stuff, but at the end I made a decision to use this and take the Harvard College and the architecture, and with that I can develop the architecture, finish the Harvard College, get some additional economical value for me, making it maybe a lot easier to get into an H3 government form and do some stuff, building up some more economy, and also denying Flackk the possibility to build up some science. He's basically now stuck at 0 science production. At some point will even lose the yellow token of the Rome roads, very likely, causing him some issues. So I thought Flackk is running a bit away with the culture, but at least he also really has some issues that I maybe can take advantage of. So I wanted to deny the Harvard College. The question was, after finishing the Harvard College, I have 3 civil actions left. The question is, what do I want to do with those? My first thought was to take the breakthrough and the journalism, if I then want to go for Anthony Gaudi. But then I have a full hand, making it maybe a bit awkward to go for Gaudi at the next turn. There might be important cards that I want to take, like a government form or something else. And so I didn't like it too much to have a full hand. I thought about just taking Anthony Gaudi in hand, but he will be available for cheaper the next turn. I thought about just taking the strategy, but only with the strategy being on 4 military actions. I was not certain if that will be enough to really force something with the military, and I rather hope to maybe get a government form at some point, or maybe the military theory. So I didn't like that too much. Maybe I could just take the breakthrough and the journalism and then go for Anthony Gaudi at the next turn and do some stuff. Maybe that could be fine. If there's a government form, if I can take and develop it, at least I will get some civil actions back, which hopefully will allow me to then still take and elect Anthony Gaudi. So that could maybe be fine, but at the end I actually made the decision to go for Mandela, elect him, and then finish the Harvard College. I'm still not certain about this decision, but it has some advantages. Of course, Mandela is not scoring me as much culture as Anthony Gaudi, but I can take and elect him already this turn, going up to 9 cult reduction already this turn. I can maybe at least build 1 additional happy face, so then he might, for example, reduce me 3 additional cult reduction every turn, which is a little bit less than Anthony Gaudi, but he also gives me the additional civil action. Flackk can't really do a lot on his civilization anyway, so if there are government forms, he might just take them away, so I don't know how quickly I might have the chance to get a new government form, and then the additional civil actions being the difference between being on 5 and 6 civil actions might actually be quite big. Also, I don't need to spend any more civil actions on taking an H3 leader, I just have the leader now for the rest of the game. So those are the advantages, and I Also thought, in case I have this tactic now, in case I draw an early one, maybe get the necessary tools, if I go into a military heavy direction still, which I at this point thought might not very likely happen, but could still definitely be possible, especially if Flackk doesn't get the revolutionary ideas and stays on those warriors for longer, then the Mandela could be quite a better leader than Gaudi, because the additional civil actions might be useful to actually achieve all of the things that I need to go for a military push. And yeah, so that was also a part of my thinking process, but there are definitely downsides. Anthony Gaudi is giving me more culture, and with committing to Mandela, I also take the option away to go for some other H3 leaders. For example, going for Gaudi now and then going for Pierre later on has a lot of potential. Also, if I should go for the internet, it could be nice to have a leader like Pierre or Fleming at the end to get also a bonus for the internet going, for example. So definitely has some downsides, but I just thought the additional civil action might be very useful and could make up for the little bit less of culture that I'm getting. But I wasn't really certain about this decision. Maybe I should have just taken breakthrough in journalism, went for Anthony Gaudi, and then with having the journalism's anti-opera, hopefully I would be able to just generate quite a bunch of culture. Maybe I will draw some impacts at some point, and with that, and maybe then hopefully at some point getting a government form. I wonder, maybe I can close the culture gap. But I can do something similar, hopefully with Mandela as well, going for a lot of culture, and then the additional civil action might also just help me in some situations. I draw 2 cards, and I do actually draw a war. So now, of course, with having this war in hand, if I should get the necessary tools now, like especially more military actions, of course, then I definitely might change my approach and not try to build up something peaceful, but rather punish Flackk for only having those warriors available at the moment. Flackk at his turn seats, and the Ravages of Time is revealed. Luckily for me, no civil unrest, because the downside of going for this Harvard College play is that I have an unhappy worker for one more turn. But I still was willing to go for the Harvard College. Alternatively, I could have just gone for opera for Anthony Gaudi, starting more culture production immediately, but yeah, as I said, I just thought Harvard College would have been a very strong option for Flackk potentially, and also still provides quite a bit of value for myself. The Ravages of Time is now revealed. Flackk makes the decision to lose the Rome roads. I think he can't afford to lose the Medici Castle, but it is a bit annoying. He has to disband a warrior to not have an uprising, builds another theater, scores even more culture production, takes the air forces, takes the strategy, disbands the warrior, and now builds the selective breeding to get some more food production going. And with his denial picks, we can see that he is the most worried about a potential military push, which is definitely understandable with only having those warriors now only being at 5 strength. But I also thought the democracy, maybe he should have potentially denied that instead of the air forces, because there are 2 copies of air forces anyway. Of course, I don't know when the order will be available, and that might potentially make it that I don't want to go for a military push, and maybe at the end the air forces are very late and I can't use them. But the democracy has just the potential to boost my position quite a lot, so I was actually surprised that I still get a chance to take that at the next turn. And yeah, after I saw the end of Flack's turn, I thought at my next turn I might just go for the democracy, and then I have a lot of civil actions, and hopefully if I draw some nice impacts, I was hoping that I have some ways to close the culture gap peacefully. But at my turn, there will be some other options available as well that I then had to consider. And as you can see, I actually don't go for the democracy. There is now also the communism available, and there's also the military theory available. And with me having now this tactic and the war drawn, and with Flackk still being in those warriors, only having this as a revolutionary idea too, and even if he gets one military tech, it's still not said that he has a fitting tactic for it. He could of course have hussars or fortifications where he only needs one military tech, then he only needs one copy of revolutionary idea to make those work. Or maybe build a lab at the next turn and then accumulate the science over the following turns. So that could be, but he just looks very vulnerable. It was still a very, very close decision for me, and I'm definitely not certain if I made the correct decision here. Because if I go for the democracy, I get quite a big boost. I thought about if I want to go for the democracy, I still take the military theory in hand. And if I get some copies of revolutionary ideas, especially with the Harvard College, maybe I can go for the democracy while still setting up a bit of military pressure. But if Flack gets one of the copies of revolutionary idea, and even if he has no fitting tactic, if he sacrifices with the Meiji Castle and just potentially builds a lot of stuff, for example, some air forces or modern infantry and upgrades those warriors, then I still need to put a bit of effort into getting enough strength. So when I go for democracy, then the military, it might not be that easy to go for military push. Of course, I could go for a bit of a middle, um, for something in between, go for the communism, which is not as strong in a peaceful approach as the democracy, but maybe leaves myself more open for military push because I already have some additional military actions done. But if I go for the communism, I kind of need to build a bread and circuses immediately. And if I go for the democracy, I kind of wanted to build an opera, just starting a lot of culture production. But I could go for it, but it also costs more science than the military theory, meaning it is quite a bit more difficult to maybe go for communism, cannons, and air forces, which I ideally need all of, to go for a relatively big war. So if the military theory, just because it costs less science, makes it maybe a lot more likely that I can actually pull off something nice with going for a relatively big war at some point. Yeah, but it was a very tough decision here. It just depends on some factors that I don't have knowledge about yet. Because, for example, I could go for the democracy and try something peaceful, and then if Flack doesn't get any revolutionary ideas, stays on warriors, but I can't maybe punish him that easily. And then maybe he can do some nice stuff to still make it that he stays ahead in culture. For example, if I go for the democracy, maybe Flack can just start building the United Nations, just get some additional culture from there, maybe then get another wonder later on. And no, so at the moment I'm 30 culture behind. If I go for democracy and opera now, I close down the gap in culture reduction. Not completely, but so I maybe have the chance to stay behind in 30 culture and then try to close the gap, which definitely might be possible, but it depends a lot on what impacts I draw. And yeah, so maybe it could work out very well with the democracy. Maybe I should have gone for it. But with Flack at the moment just being that vulnerable, and with me having drawn the war, I at the end made a decision to go for a more military heavy approach now with the military theory, and I will develop it. I will build an additional bread and circuses, at least with the one surplus happy face. I get a little bit more out of Mandela now, and then I develop the cannons, disband a warrior, build one cannon, making sure that it still draw 3 cards. The following turn I can then increase my population, go for another cannon, maybe reveal the tactic. And I was hoping that the second copy of Air Force is not very late, and that I can make use out of it, and then with going for some armies with Air Forces, I was hoping that this war at the end might be big enough to win me the game. But of course, Flack will now at every turn make his culturally bigger and bigger. So the war has to be actually big, or maybe I have to draw a second war. I was hoping that I have a chance to make the war big, but Flack, if he gets into rockets, if he has fortifications, or if he gets tanks and has hussars or something like this, then he can maybe somehow somewhat nicely defend. I could have taken the military build-up away, but I would have to miss on one of those two things. But I wanted to start using my military actions. I didn't want to be vulnerable to the civil unrest any longer, and I didn't want to take too many cards away from the row to not move the deck forward too quickly, the civil deck, because at the moment it might be actually be quite close on how many turns I have left to declare a war. But with the military build-up, Flack, if he gets those rockets going, can maybe build a bunch of them, and if he has the right tactic, maybe the war at the end won't be big enough. So, yeah, it depends really on a lot of factors that I don't really know yet. Do I draw maybe another war? Do I draw some impacts? How nicely will Flack be able to defend? Has he a nice tactic? Does he get a copy of Revolutionary Idea? And so it's a difficult decision to make, a really crucial decision to make. Maybe I could be somewhat confident that I can close the culture gap if I go for the democracy now, just because I have a lot of good impacts and some that could actually be very big, and with the many civil actions I can do some nice stuff. So yeah, maybe I should have gone for the democracy, but I made a decision to go for the military push. And then I draw some cards, an aggression, which maybe can be useful at some point, another colonization card, and the impact of colonies. So one impact, even if I go for the military push now, getting some nice impacts might still be important. Impact of colonies not ideal, there are definitely stronger impacts, but it is an impact that gives me +3 at the moment, so I was overall still happy to yeah, at least have something that I can seed at the next turn, which might already be important. Flackk seeds as well his first impact into the deck, which worried me a bit, because it might be impact of culture potentially, which could be dangerous. And then the crime wave is revealed, which at least loses him 3 culture. He takes the rockets, and I really was not happy to see the first copy of Revolutionary already be available, meaning Flackk now can go for rockets at the next turn. He also takes the military build-up, and now I was really worried that Flackk might indeed have the fortifications tactic available, which could make it quite a bit more difficult for me to make the war big enough. And also there are still no air forces, so I was definitely a bit worried at this point that I maybe have gone into the wrong direction, that I maybe should have gone with the democracy and tried something peaceful. And now I was really worried. Flack's culture lead is getting bigger and bigger. But of course, there's definitely also still hope that maybe Flackk doesn't have the fortifications tactic available. This turn I don't want to play the aggression, Flackk very likely can defend, and also I want to draw some more cards, so I see the impact of colonies into the deck. The event revealed is the civil unrest. And this turn I will increase my population. I definitely want to take the patriotism, just some more military, some more resource that I can use for the military. And I also definitely wanted to build another cannon, reveal the tactic. The question was, do I want to use the patriotism already this turn with the Harvard College? I could, for example, use the additional military action to already disband a warrior without missing out on a draw, but I thought it might be better to have the additional military action at one of the following turns to potentially be able to declare war while still having one additional military action available. And also, there's one H1 H2 event in the deck that I don't have knowledge about, and I thought maybe it could be that Flackk has seeded a colony into the deck, maybe a colony that will be helpful, that gives him additional science or additional yellow tokens and food, like Vast Territory 2, and so I thought maybe the warrior could also still be useful to have to, with me now having drawn some colonization card to potentially compete for winning a colony. So I didn't use the patriotism this turn already. Build a cannon, revealed a tactic, and with not using the patriotism I also have the option to take the tanks away. I also thought about bro sports, which could potentially allow me, especially with the fission upgrade, to go for some cheap additional strength. But if I develop it, then I need a revolutionary idea to also go for the air force, so I very likely don't want to commit to it. And I also thought taking the tanks away might be quite important, not necessarily because I want to use those for myself, but of course there is the chance that I draw mechanized army, for example, and even without the air forces I can maybe go for a bit of strength, and if I get the revolutionary idea, maybe I can even go for mechanized armies with air forces. But also as a hate draft, because Flackk has taken the rockets now, but maybe he has actually no fortifications and hussars instead, and then giving him the tanks might give him access to a tactic. Also, maybe he has no tactic that he can use at the moment, but if he gets another copy of Revolutionary Idea, he could copy to my mobile artillery tactic, so I just wanted to remove options from him, and with that took the tanks away. Again, I was very interested to see what I will draw, maybe a second war, maybe some nice impacts, and no, at least one impact that is definitely very decent. Impact of progress at the moment is giving me +8, and it's looking unlikely that Flackk will be able to improve his impact of progress very easily. And I also was happy to see that the air forces are on the row, so I don't have to be afraid that those are very, very late and that I won't be able to use them. Flackk will now play the revolutionary idea, goes for the rockets, increases population, actually builds an additional religion to go for a bit more culture production even, goes for a rocket, goes for another rocket, and what I was afraid of is actually sadly true. He has the fortifications tactic, and with that I was really worried that I actually will be able to make the war big enough. Yeah, that really made me worry quite a bit, and no, I thought that I maybe with those developments in the last few turns have taken the wrong choice with not having gone for the democracy, instead trying to go for some military. And Flackk will also take the reserves and the brew spots, maybe also just taking some cards to potentially progress the deck forward quicker, but it should be very likely that I have this turn and also the next turn to still go for war. Then this turn will be too early, so my plan was to prepare for war the next turn. And to use this politics action in a useful way, I made a decision to see the impact of progress into the deck. The one event is revealed that I don't have knowledge about. It's not a colony, instead an independence declaration, meaning that the economic progress still stays in the deck. The economic progress I was not too happy about to have it in there, because it might also just help Flackk, but yeah, because I can now set up for the amount of strength that I want to go for without the economic progress, which I kinda have to, because I don't know whether Flackk will see it or not. So I at the end, because even if Flackk reveals it now, I just don't have the military actions to go for more strength with the economic progress. But for Flackk it might be helpful now, so I wasn't too happy to have this event in there now. I take the air forces. One thing that I immediately considered was, can I take the air forces and maybe the fast food chains and then try to manage both, somehow declaring a war and going for wonder, but it sadly isn't possible, because if the economic progress isn't revealed by Flackk, I need one copy of reserves to have the necessary resource to go for 3 armies with 3 air forces, which I wanted to achieve. Yeah, and if I and also yeah, of course I can consider going for a war that is less big, but then Flackk with the economic progress can, or even without it, I think if he takes one copy of reserves and a military build-up, he can build 4 more rockets in 2 turns, and then I need to go for a war that big, otherwise yeah, it's just not big enough. So yeah, I had to skip this wonder here. I took the air forces, developed the air forces, disband the warrior now. Now I know that there's no colony coming, so I disband it now, build an air force, take the reserves, and then to make the war possible, I need to build 1 more unit already, so that I have enough military actions. At the next turn I build 1 more air force, and at the next turn I can play the patriotism in the reserves, destroy 3 things, and then I can build 1 more army with air force, putting me at 67 strength. If Flackk goes for the 4 rockets that he can achieve, definitely even without the economic progress being revealed, he will be at 48, and if he sacrifices at 56, so he will be 11 strength behind me, and yeah, that will then not be that big of a war, and I was really worried that yeah, it might just not be enough to close the culture gap. I draw 2 more cards, and I was very happy to see this impact of science. That might just be a very nice way to get some more culture going. I mean, the Occupy I maybe also can use after Flackk sacrifices for the defense against the warp, but yeah, the impact of science is definitely a very nice option to have available, so I was happy about that. Flackk seeds. I was not happy to see this, because it means another impact, another chance that the impact of cultures may be in there. The economic progress is revealed, giving me 2 food and 6 additional resource. At least the 2 food will mean that I don't have to, that I can increase my population now once normally, so that I don't have to destroy as much stuff. But it also helps Flackk definitely a bit, having to destroy less stuff. He will now increase his population, build a rocket, build another rocket, getting out of corruption, takes the Empire State Building, and takes the reserves. It's interesting that he takes the Empire State Building, because if I want to go for a war that is big enough, then I can't that easily go for a wonder. I don't have the civil actions to take it, don't have the resource to take it, and I really put a lot of effort into preparing for war, and even if I don't go for war at all, maybe then the Empire State Building is not big enough to make me catch up. Maybe if I, after the impact of science, draw even another strong impact, maybe it somehow could be possible, and maybe just Flackk didn't have a lot else to do anyway, and just thought, let's just take any peaceful option away from me, force me into the war, maybe. With the big culture gap, he rightfully was thinking that he has maybe decent chances to win if I try the war, and so he maybe just wants to remove all of the peaceful options from me, and it takes the last wonder away from me. And with that, of course, it is clear that at my turn I have to go for the war over culture. I just have to go for it and hope that it somehow will be enough, but a culture gap at this point is quite big. We can maybe take a look at it again. It's over 50 culture already, and the war itself might be somewhat like a 30 culture swing. So, and Flackk will get more production, will get Pierre. I at least will be able to go for the endowment. So there is some hope left, but no, I was not too confident at this point. Then this turn I will increase my population, I will destroy the lab, I will destroy one mine, and then play the patriotism. Now that the economic progress was revealed, I don't have to play the reserves, but I have to play the patriotism, because otherwise I don't have enough military actions. I build one more air force, one more cannon, one more knight, going up to 67 strength, take the endowment, and then I play the endowment immediately, just because there isn't really anything else that is useful that I can do. I kind of would have liked it to NDH, to make Flackk lose Bach, so that he maybe loses a civil action, also making it that he doesn't get any additional draws, where he maybe has another chance to get the impact of culture if he hasn't drawn it already. So I kind of would have liked it, but that would mean missing out on the endowment completely, and that would just be too big of a cost. I was hoping that maybe Flackk doesn't take the satellites away, because that would improve my impact of progress by quite a bit that is in there. And yeah, so now I just have to hope and see if at the end this war will be big enough. Flackk will destroy one of his farms. He needs to destroy some stuff. He placed reserves for food thanks to the economic progress. He doesn't need to play all of the reserves for resources to build enough rockets. He could have maybe built a warrior or something in addition to that, but then he also has to destroy more stuff, so I think it makes sense for him to maybe make it that he doesn't have to destroy a lot. He will elect Pierre, getting to Olympic Games then at the next turn. At least he misses out on the 5 culture from Bach. He could have, for example, also taken Churchill, keep Bach, and then get the 3 culture from Churchill at the next turn. So Pierre, even though he gets to Olympic Games, is really not that strong for him. But of course, still scores him a bit of additional culture, which is not ideal. And yeah, so with the last civil action, he then takes the efficient upgrade. Thought about if maybe he could have played a revolutionary idea, because then no, his last next turn is of course his last turn, so that doesn't make any sense. So taking the efficient upgrade is probably the best thing that he can do. My turn, Flackk will of course sacrifice with the Meiji Castle, and I have to think about if there's some reason to go for an aggression. I will steal 17 cultures, so at least a 34 culture swing. Yeah, I think having disbanded one warrior, Flackk is now at 55 instead of 56, so at least a 34 culture swing, that's at least something, and I just can't do anything with the additional resource that I would take, so the most culture is definitely the best thing to do, is to see the impact of science into the deck. The impact that is revealed was the impact that was seeded by me, the impact of colonies, which gives me +3. And in this turn I just disband some units, build some stuff, an additional opera, an additional religion. I can't build any more operas because I don't have enough urban building limit. And then of course I want to go for the satellites for the impact of progress. And then I can disband one more thing, play the reserves, and build one more thing. I don't really want to build an additional urban building, but I thought I can maybe build an additional mine or an additional farm, because Flackk has the 2 impacts. And in order for me to win, I kinda have to hope that Flackk doesn't have the impact of culture in there, because then my chances are looking really slim. So I have to hope that this impact isn't in there, and then there are not that many impacts that were actually nice for Flackk or seedable. The impact of wonders would be one of them, but I have that one in hand. Impact of government, for example, would be a fine one. But apart from that, there are not that many, and I thought impact of industry could definitely be in there. So my first instinct was immediately to build an additional mine, especially because when defending against the war, Flackk destroyed a farm instead of the additional mine. Instead of the mine, but I kinda had a feeling that he could potentially trick me into a wrong decision here if he has taken a look at what I want to do at my turn. Maybe he saw that I have the potential to maybe build an additional mine or farm or something like this. And maybe there could be a case if he has the impact of agriculture seeded, and if it is not one of those 2 events, but rather the event that is here in the deck, maybe it could be reasonable to actually destroy the farm to now let me think that impact of industry is in there, but now he has taken the efficient upgrade, he can just cheaply rebuild it, and he wants to do that anyway, very likely, because he has famine issues. Otherwise, then he can upgrade it with the efficient upgrade, and out of the sudden he has good food production again. So yeah, and he probably wants to do this anyway, so it's not as clear if the impact of industry is in there or the impact of agriculture, and building an additional farm would actually make a bigger difference for the impact of agriculture. Yeah, so I wasn't really certain which of those two impacts I should rather prepare for. At the end I went with the industry, because I just thought Flackk kept this, and if one of those impacts is actually, if the impact of agriculture industry is actually one of those two impacts, then of course it makes sense to keep the thing where this impact might be influenced, and with that I at the end made a decision to commit to the impact of industry and build one additional mine. Like this I stay at least at 43 strength, meaning that even if Flackk builds an additional rocket, he can't win the impact. Actually, no, that is a mistake that I didn't see during the game. So Flackk, if he has the impact of strength, can actually win the impact of strength now. At least it would come at a bit of distraction, but yeah, that actually I overlooked during the game. Flackk can actually get a tactic back, of course. I maybe just missed this one little thing here, but of course, yeah, he sacrificed and had 3 tactics before, so that might have been a mistake then to delete that many units. Maybe I should have only deleted that many that Flackk doesn't have access to the impact of strength, but on the other hand, I'm at 136, plus 13 is 149. Flackk, I kinda have to hope that he doesn't have another impact, because then it's looking really slim, so I have to hope that he has no impact, and then if he, for example, builds one more religion, gets the Olympic Games, he will be at 171, meaning he has a 22 culture lead, and maybe I have to take some risks anyway, but no, he has a 22 culture lead, he has 2 impacts in there at the moment, hopefully he won't be able to seed another one, and my 2 impacts are giving me plus 24 against him, meaning I have a plus 2 lead before his impacts are counted, meaning there is definitely some hope left, but it would need, or in order to me to have chances to win, the 2 impacts from Flackk have to be neutral impacts, and so something like impact of culture or impact of strength, which maybe you know that it won't be revealed, otherwise I wouldn't have noticed that just at that moment, but the impact of culture might be in there, and then it's not enough, but if there are 2 neutral impacts, then maybe there are some chances. And first of all, I was really hoping to see that Flackk doesn't have another impact to seed, and he actually doesn't, so that is nice. He uses the Olympic Games, of course, and he actually is destroying a mine, disbanding a rocket, building this farm, and then upgrading it. And with that, I really thought, did he indeed trick me into building this additional mine? I mean, he kinda needs to build this farm anyway, because he otherwise would have famine, so yeah, probably he just did it for that, but it's interesting that he destroys this mine now. Maybe that means that the impact of industry isn't in the deck, and then it's basically all that he can do, and he is now, as said, at 171, I'm at 149. So now, of course, I was very interested to see what his 2 impacts are, and if I indeed maybe still have some chances to win this game. The first impact is one of mine, the impact of science, which gives me plus 10. Then the next impact is again one of mine, the impact of progress, which is quite a big one for me with plus 14. So now I have a 2 culture lead, and now there are 2 impacts that were seeded by Flackk, and those will now decide whether I will be able to win or not. And the first one of those is actually the impact of industry, so I was a bit surprised to see that, because Flackk has destroyed a mine at his turn, but maybe we can take a look at his turn. That there are definitely reasons why he might have done that. And then the last impact is no impact of culture, and instead the impact of architecture. So at the end I'm actually able to win this game, which definitely came a bit as a surprise for me. I mean, I knew that I had some chances, but with Flackk having seeded 2 impacts, I just thought it's so likely that the impact of culture is among them, because there are not that many nice impacts. And then I just wasn't really confident that I have any good chances, but at the end I somehow managed to win this game, which of course I was very happy about. Yeah, so quite an intense game for me, and of course I'm happy that I was able to win it. Flackk did destroy the mine, which cost him 2 save points from the impact of industry, but he was maybe worried about impact of harmony, which would be very strong for me. Maybe impact of competition would be less good if he destroys another rocket, for example, instead of destroying the mine. So yeah, there were definitely some reasons in order to destroy this mine, even though it looked a bit weird, of course, after seeing him destroy this mine and the impact of industry being revealed. Yeah, so quite a wild game from my perspective. Flackk, yeah, went for a bit of a greedy play, had the Magic Castle early, knew that he can defend himself nicely, took the dramas, denied me the government forms, went for Bach, and then just ran away with the culture, and really, yeah, it was quite stressful to, or it feels quite stressful to play against this, and then knowing that I have to figure out something now, otherwise Flackk will just run away. I'm definitely not sure if I did all the right decisions. There were a lot of crucial moments. Should I deny the selective breeding or not? Should I go for democracy and try something peaceful, or should I go for military theory? Should I deny the Harvard College? A lot of tough decisions. Should I go for Mandela or rather Anthony Gaudi and leaving myself open for something like Pierre? A lot of very tough decisions. I'm not sure if I did the right decisions in all of them. I think it was a bit unfortunate staying on despotism for that long, but it was of course in age 3 also a decision that I willingly did, because I had the option to go for democracy, and it was nice to have this option available. But I also definitely, some things went very nicely for me, having a lot of events to seed for Nostradamus, the international agreement being revealed at that time, allowing me to go for that Harvard College, and also drawing some nice impacts. There were definitely a lot of impacts that could have been good for me, population, happiness, harmony, but the ones that were in there were definitely quite strong for me, so that I managed to draw those, and also the impact of colonies, which was not that big, but at least gave me the option to seed, was definitely quite nice. And yeah, with having those impacts, and with this one war, and with Flackk having no impact of culture, if one of his 2 impacts would be impact of culture instead, he would be able to win. So really close game at the end. It just depended a little bit on what impacts were drawn by which player. And yeah, Flackk at the end, with having the fortifications tactic and getting those rockets, was actually able to defend himself relatively well, so that I actually lost quite a bit of hope in the last few turns, and thought all the time about if I maybe should have gone for the democracy, and if maybe that would have, and maybe that could have also led to a good outcome. Maybe I should have just had the confidence that I can do a lot of nice stuff with having that many civil actions, and in general just a more flexible, economically stronger position. But Flackk just had those warriors and was stuck at 2 signs. So of course it was also somewhat understandable, of course, that I was very tempted to go for those military options, especially after I had drawn the war. Without a war in hand, I definitely would have gone for the democracy. Yeah, so quite a tough game, very well played by Flackk. Quite an intense game from my perspective, quite a close game at the end. Well played by Flackk. It definitely could have gone into his direction, if only some small things would have gone differently, if he only would have drawn the impact of culture instead of one of the impacts that he has seeded in there. Then already I would lose this game. So yeah, of course I'm very happy to win this game at the end, but that definitely could have gone the other way. Now I'm of course lucky and happy that I start with 4 points, with a win into the stage. And yeah, so I hope it was an interesting game to watch. There are no other games finished yet, so we don't have to take a look at the standings. And yeah, then thanks for watching. I hope you're looking forward to the next games. As always, or as said in the stage before, I don't know if I will cover all of the games. I will just cover as many as I have fun doing so. And yeah, but I still hope you're looking forward for some more games to come. Thanks for watching, and then see you in the next video.